Hey folks, and welcome to the Counter Clipping Show for December 20th, 2021. I always have to double check the date because I'm afraid I'm going to say it wrong when I start the show. So good evening, everybody. Tonight we are drinking courtesy of Scott. Thank you so much, Scott, for a bottle of the Glenlivet 15. It is fruity and delightful. So we are enjoying that this evening. We are clipping SPQR, and you may ask yourself, what do you mean? He's had that for ages. That's true, but this is actually a fresh copy because I wanted a copy with uniform counters. Last edition that I had, which was fully punched and organized. And this thing's a bitch to organize, by the way. Had different counter thicknesses between some of the expansions because I had like pieced it together manually, where the latest edition of SPQR Deluxe has Barbarian in it, the Barbarian expansion, so you get all the battles except for one. There's a I was going through this earlier today, and there is a battle out of the Jugurtha expansion that doesn't appear to have made it into the current deluxe edition, and I'm not sure why. Because it is definitely a Roman Republican battle. Unlike, say, Raphia, which was more properly placed with the Greek stuff, because it's a successors battle. But that was originally in War Elephant, which was an SPQR module. So we're clipping this tonight. We've just started on it, so there is no chance whatsoever that we will finish clipping this 5.5 counter sheet game this evening. We are talking about Traveler, something I have long threatened to do. And I know that this is, a wargaming show, and I'm sure we're going to talk about wargaming, but also Traveler is not uniquely in terms of role-playing games, but almost uniquely in terms of role-playing games that are still around. It exists at kind of an intersection between RPGs and wargames. You could... Back in the early 80s, you could be a Traveler player and not do the RPG stuff. You could just do the wargaming side. They released multiple independent wargames, some of which were tied into the RPG side of things, some of which weren't. You could certainly get into the universe creation side of things, which could keep you honestly occupied forever. But tonight we're going to talk about all things Traveler for as long as we stay on topic. As has already been pointed out in the chat, chances are pretty good we'll end up talking about a whole bunch of random stuff anyway. So tonight's channel of the week, or this week's channel of the week, is page 121. I was actually saving this channel, link in the video description, because it's a pretty new channel. It is primarily a Traveler channel thus far. So go ahead and check it out. He's doing some really interesting little overviews of some older Traveler stuff and some of the newer stuff as well. So before... Let me get these all stacked up here because we have the entire First Legion done. This is a SPQR. This meaning SPQR is a magnificent game. Honestly, if you had this in Great Battles of Alexander, which ought to get reprinted probably in 2022, that's an enormous quantity of gaming, an enormous quantity of content for you. I'm going to turn the fan on. Because I'm already hot from all the hot air in here, so... Anyway. All right, so 60 people here already, so great. Thanks for turning out tonight. I know on sort of an off-topic night. We are doing a show next Monday. There's no reason for me not to. So this is not the last counter clipping show of 2021, and then we'll be back on January 3rd, which of course will be the first counter clipping show of 2022. So let me say hello to John Longshore, Bayonet Brandt, who may not even still be around at this point, Carol Kretter, Matt Taylor, Charles Latora, Strelnikov, thank you so much, Mike Anthony, Michael Potts, 28mm RPG, Joe Faust from Akron, Ohio, or thereabouts, Stephen Roberts, Henry Sikorsky, Ryan Havanas, Vince Ree, Menders, Dale Brady, Six Actual, who's also done some Traveler content, by the way. Patrick from Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials. Rick Cox, Krusty Captain, Dicey Odds, Jeff Anderson, Scott Bell, William Bird, John Clark, Jason LaRiviere, Robert Moffat, Julian Davies, Kyle Reese, Fucko, Chet Bell, Chad Canady, Bruce Schwark. Bruce, welcome to the stream. I'm not sure I've seen you around tonight. I think I got everybody. Nope. Todd Walser, Bill Simoni. Hopefully I haven't. Cardboard Casualty. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody. We're now moving on to the Third Legion here as we continue our talk. So, for those who don't know, Traveler is an RPG. Was not the first science fiction RPG. The first science fiction RPG, as far as I could tell, was Metamorphosis Alpha. But that was a kind of a game that acquired a bit of a following long after its time had passed, right? It kind of sank like a stone at the time. Kind of the first big science fiction space opera type game was Traveler, and it was super innovative. It came out in 1977. There are some little black books. I literally cannot get to the shelf in which my little black books are stored right now, so I don't have them to flash around. But it's got a very long publication history from Game Designers Workshop, which published the first 3 editions, 4 if you count Traveler 2300, which you shouldn't. And more than that, if you count all the different versions of Classic Traveler that they did. They did at least 4 or 5. So there was the little black books you could buy, which you could buy either individually or in a box. There was the deluxe edition, which was the 3 little black books, an adventure and a map in a big box, which I also have. I have all this stuff, so who am I kidding? I don't have everything that GDW ever released for Traveler, but I have. It's real close. There's a couple of alien modules that I don't have, and I don't have Book 8 robots. And other than that, I think I have everything, including even one of the T-shirts. So I'm not even sure where I got that anymore. Several years later, in 1986, 1987, they had basically farmed working on Traveler out to an outside company called Digest Group Publications, in a very similar, as far as I could tell, very similar relationship to the way Multiman Publishing kind of emerged as the official workshop for ASL, even while Avalon Hill was still the publisher. Digest Group did a bunch of stuff for Traveler, but the big thing that they did was they did the design stuff on what became Mega Traveler, basically a combined and consolidated Classic Traveler that brought in a lot of the previously optional rules. It redid some of the design sequences and stuff, but it's really the same game if you played Classic Traveler with Mercenary and High Guard and Scouts and Merchant Prince, and if you used Citizens of the Imperium, for example. It's pretty much the same game. Mega Traveler is very much a Traveler 2.0. Nevertheless, it blew up the universe, which was unpopular with the fan base. So GDW at some point, and I forget the exact dates on this, at some point decided to double down on it. Digest Group had folded, and there was really nobody in-house left at GDW that was the person on the old Traveler system. So they decided to convert the whole thing to what was then called the GDW House system, which was the Twilight 2000 system. They blew up the universe again more, and released a game called Traveler New Era, which I actually played and we liked, but it didn't feel quite as much like in some ways it did feel like Traveler, and in some ways it didn't. But what we didn't like necessarily was the discarding wholesale of this sort of Traveler universe that had been built up in various games and products since 1977. Gamma World was a post-Holocaust game. I mean, I consider Gamma World a science fantasy game more than a science fiction game. So if you want to call it science fiction, then yeah, I think it predates Traveler too. I'd have to actually look up publication date on Gamma World, but it might. The only gaming products that I still have from when I was a young teenager, the only ones are Traveler products. I got rid of everything else, the D&D stuff, all the D&D stuff. I mean, I reacquired a bunch of that stuff over the years too, so it's not like I don't have any D&D stuff. But the Traveler stuff I kept, and I got to the point where I had several extra copies of the little black books, and I would bind them and give them away and stuff like that. Traveler is interesting and unique because for a whole bunch of reasons. One of which is like the first really mature skill system to show up in RPGs. People will tell you that the first skill system appeared in Bunnies and Burrows, and I would encourage folks that have that opinion to actually go look at Bunnies and Burrows and see if it's a real skill system rather than a class-based ability system like D&D. I think it is the latter. So I think the first real skill system shows up in Traveler. And then is further refined by Chaosium when they do RuneQuest about a year later. So, all right, let's see what we got. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. Folks from all over the place are here. Brian Gash, yeah, I did get rid of. I think I sold 2 copies of SPQR in sales. One was a buddy's, one was mine, and then this was the extra copy that I just said, oh, screw it, I'll just keep it. I thought about buying an extra copy of Alexander too to solve the same problem where I have Tyrant, which is the last expansion. It's going to be included in the next printing of Great Battles of Alexander. Enormous quantity of content in both those games, and the quantity of content in the new version of Alexander will be even more. A lot of those Syracusan battles are kind of the same. The battles out of Tyrant, but it's a bit samey. Callendale pointed this out in his review of Tyrant battles, and he's not wrong. But Traveler is also, since Jeff Beeler's talking about computer Traveler character generators, which of course exist, and which of course you can find now on the internet just as websites. There were 2 Traveler computer games in the Mega Traveler era that were like actual GDW licensed products. But Traveler has been an enormous influence on video games, aside from official Traveler video games. The creators of Elite, for example, acknowledged that a primary inspiration was Traveler. And then, of course, Elite went on to inspire in additional several generations of sci-fi exploration, trade, combat type games, including things like EVE Online, of course, Elite Dangerous, which I've played a fair amount of and which I got kind of pissed at when Odyssey came out. We'll go back to it at some point, I'm sure, but it got me annoyed enough that I don't have it installed. Right, I uninstalled it for the first time in years. So there are relatively few RPGs that I feel like I could do a show on. Traveler's one of them. Rollmaster and the Rollmaster family of products are probably another. I have no plans to do another show on those, but it's something that we might do at some point, and I would like to do video on it. That just has not actually materialized. So we had Classic Traveler 1977. Now, Classic Traveler was released in the Little Black Books, the Deluxe Little Black Books, which were in a couple different printings, and they did make some changes between printings. I wouldn't call them substantial changes, but they were like changes where it's like this rule is different now. High Guard was like that too. There was a first edition and second edition High Guard. So there was the books, right? Books 1 through 3, and then they added a book 0, which was Introduction to Traveler, and then they added a number of supplementary books. Book 4 was Mercenary, book 5 was High Guard, book 6 was Scouts, book 7 was Merchant Prince, and book 8 was Robots. Then they had a line of what they called supplements. These are all the Little Black Books. Supplement 4, as I recall, was Citizens of the Imperium, which gave you 12 new careers to play with. Unfortunately, the difficulty with those careers, and this showed up in Mega Traveler 2, is that they're as detailed as the careers in the Classic Traveler products. They're not as detailed as the advanced careers in Mercenary, High Guard, Scouts, Merchant Prince, and so on. So if you were playing, say, a Marine, which is covered in Mercenary, then you had a lot more options, and you ended up exiting character generation, assuming you weren't dead, which is a thing you could do in Traveler. You would exit character creation with like noticeably more skills. So the other thing is, as Manders points out, is that Traveler came with built-in world-building tools. And that is a thing that even now, not that many RPGs have done. A few have, not very many. But Traveler it's right in the game, and it's every edition of Traveler has had that. Now this is we'll get back to this. This is the not any more current edition of Traveler from Mongoose Publishing. We're going to call this Traveler Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition. There is a 2022 update to this that had just came out. I haven't even looked at it yet. I haven't even ordered it yet because I've been concentrating on war games. But it is a mild revision, kind of a 2.1 Mongoose Traveler thing. So all those supplements, that whole like universe of supplements that had kind of built up both the system and the universe, exist in like 85, 86, okay? And GDW finally says, hey, this is kind of a mess now. We got, some of this stuff's out of print. We don't want to reprint it. We got to like consolidate, put this back, kind of reassemble all the pieces here and turn this back into a cohesive system again. And that's where Digest Group comes in to rebuild it into Mega Traveler, which is released, as I recall, I didn't know prep for this, in 1987, and is around until about 1995, when Traveler New Era comes out, wins an Origins Award, and sells quite well, but GDW ceases operations for other reasons in that same general ballpark, part of which is the general collapse of the hobby around the collectible card game thing. A number of things that people point out that contributed to the demise of GDW have been confirmed to not have contributed to the demise of GDW, including how badly Traveler the New Era was selling. It was actually selling fairly well, but a lot of their other games weren't. They had gotten bitten by the book trade bug in a similar way that TSR had, where they ended up owing their book distributor tons and tons of money. Now, they also closed operations having paid all their bills, too. So they did not go bankrupt. Jeff Beeler mentions Fifth Frontier War. So there's supposed to be a Fifth Frontier War line of products coming from Mongoose, which they've kind of been telling us for a couple of years. And we haven't seen any of them yet. So we'll see how that turns out. They keep doing Kickstarters, and I keep buying them, buying into the Kickstarters. Latest one was the Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society Volume 2. The first one was really good. I was very pleased with it. I absolutely bought into the second one as well. Not really being a big fan of Kickstarter right now with their tech bro blockchain nonsense, but that will assuredly save me some money. Fortunately, the wargaming hobby is not particularly dependent on Kickstarter. Relatively few companies are running their wargame publications through Kickstarter at this point. Dark Matter is appeared in the U.S. on the Sci-Fi Channel, ran for 2, 3, 4 seasons, something like that. It is somewhat Traveler-esque. I agree. Having seen about half a dozen episodes of it, I'd like to get back to it, and it's a matter of momentum. I actually I didn't bring it down because it's giant brick, is Traveler 5th edition. Okay, so I did a video on the different editions of Traveler, by the way, which predates the 2022 update, but covers everything else. It covers both editions of Mongoose Traveler and Hero Traveler and GURPS Traveler and all this other stuff. So go check that out. I should have put that in the video description, thinking about it. But if you really want that information, go ahead and check that out. I will mention Traveler 2300, which was released by GDW as a product called Traveler 2300 and didn't use the Traveler setting or the Traveler system. It used the Twilight 2000 setting and the Twilight 2000 system, and it's quite neat. It's a very hard sci-fi setting, much more so than one typically sees in role-playing games. But it didn't really take off, and I think they figured out at some point that they had made a branding error and that they had just confused people by calling it Traveler. So the second edition of 2300 was called 2300 AD rather than Traveler 2300. Trying to sort these out so I don't have to massively focus on them while I'm talking here. There's supposed to be, so there was a Traveler 2300, or Yeah, see, even I'm doing it. There was a 2300 AD book produced by Mongoose for Mongoose Traveler First Edition. There's supposed to be a new one. I don't think it's out yet. I'm somewhat behind on the Mongoose Traveler front. At one point, probably 2 years ago, well, right at the start of the pandemic, actually, I was like caught up to Mongoose Traveler Second Edition, and not anymore. So for those who don't know, if this hasn't been mentioned in the chat, and it might have been, there's never been any confirmation on this, but boy, it feels like Firefly started out as somebody's Traveler campaign, right? Because it's structured just like a Traveler campaign. And the Expanse, of course, could easily fit into the Traveler template as well. But the Expanse is also a sci-fi inside the solar. It's a space opera, but it's like inside the solar system for the most part. And whereas Traveler's always been an interstellar game. It's always been a bit kludgy to try and redo Star Wars or Star Trek with Traveler, to be completely honest about it. You could do it. You could certainly... The development of Traveler, by the way, is more or less... it happens more or less at the same time as Star Wars. So Traveler, and a lot of the Traveler development, happened before Star Wars came out. But I definitely think that, after that initial release, Star Wars was obviously a big influence on further Traveler product. So, Doug mentions that his favorite edition of Traveler is Traveler of the New Era. Yeah, that is a minority view. Traveler of the New Era has some things going for it, though. And when they did D20 Traveler, and I forget exactly how this worked out, whether it was a Quick Link Interactive product or Avenger Enterprises product or whatever, they did a bunch of New Era product, mostly written by Martin Doherty, that was really, really good. Doug, that's an interesting recommendation. The Vata's War series by Elizabeth Moon, which he says is very Traveler-esque. And Elizabeth Moon is an ex-Marine, as I remember. So maybe that fits. They are working on a D&D movie, I know, and I'm singularly unexcited about that. I mean, I'll probably end up watching it one way or the other. I of course, do remember the old D&D movies, of which there were at least 2, and there might have actually been 3. Boy, that first one with Jeremy Irons was bad. It was bad. And everybody, Jeremy Irons, at least, he knew it was bad. He knew what kind of turd he had signed a contract on. So... Argo Shim mentions that Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker are citizens of the Imperium, which he is right. I think he's called like Luke Skywanker or something like that. But Kimball Kinnison is in there, and Slippery Jim Degrees is in there, and there's a bunch of other classic sci-fi characters in there. There were, so in Dragon Magazine, there was actually a Dragon Magazine article about dwarves in Traveler at one point. I thought that was cheesy, and I don't know, thinking about it, I didn't put this together at the time, and I didn't think of it till I just mentioned it just now. I wonder how heavily that was inspired by the Space Dwarves from 40K, early 40K. So... Well, John, there is psionics in Traveler, but you're not really. I mean, they're very much psionics in the spirit of Alfred Bester rather than in the spirit of Jedi. So, Moonbase Crazy is currently playing classic Traveler, which is awesome. At some point, right, we'll do a channel RPG thing, and there's an overwhelmingly strong chance that whatever shape that takes, and whenever it happens, it's almost certainly to be Traveler. So, all right. So, Traveler: The New Era comes out, pretty much goes away with GDW. When GDW dissolves, all of the various GDW properties go out to their original creators. So somebody gets Europa, which had already been licensed out at that point. Frank Chadwick got a bunch of stuff. Mark Miller got a bunch of stuff. Mark Miller got Traveler is the biggest thing that Mark got. So Mark sets up with a company called licenses Traveler to a company called Imperium Games, which I forget the guy's name that ran it, but he's a guy that's run like a bunch of Kickstarters that never delivered at this point. They put together this like dream team, which it was a really promising development team of, you know, old Traveler people and new Traveler people, and you know, they got Larry Elmore to do sci-fi art, which was interesting, right? Not a thing that Larry is typically, you know, known for, but it's nice art. And they had Chris Foss art too, but that stuff looks just like generic Chris Foss art, in my opinion, which doesn't look like anything. It looks like just weird random crap in space. Now they did an edition of Traveler called Mark Miller's Traveler, okay, which is kind of returns. It was an attempt to return to the more of a simple system of classic Traveler, which in some ways it succeeded, and in some ways it failed, and in some ways it totally shat the bed. So the core book's actually not that bad. It's got a roll under system, which it was new at the time, and which Mark appears to like, because every subsequent edition of Traveler that he's been in charge of has had a roll under system. That's not a thing that I like. Dark Matter is on, in the US, this is different internationally, but Dark Matter is on Netflix now. It was originally on, Thin Red Line Sacred Oil has reached DEFCON 2. So, yeah, I saw that. So it should be any time. I literally checked my email before I started the stream here, and I haven't gotten it yet. So, whatever its other problems, right? So, Imperium Games got into this cash flow problem cycle, as far as I can tell, where they had to release books so they could pay the bills, so they could do the new book, and they edited nothing, they play tested nothing. Several books were released that are just complete garbage because of the amount of errata that appears in them. There are some good books that came out in that line too. Sonic Institutes is really good. The Naval Architect's Manual is pretty neat and unique. It's basically deck plan geomorphs for Traveler, and it's really quite neat. The adventures for Traveler 4 were also generally unplay tested, but basically good. But of course, no company can sustain negative cash flow. So Imperium Games went away. Traveler drifted for a number of years at that point, kind of without a permanent home. The closest it came was at Steve Jackson Games, which picked up a license to do GURPS Traveler. Now, there's two interesting things about GURPS Traveler. One, it used GURPS. Well, there's more than that, actually. The GURPS Traveler line was led by Lauren Wiseman, who was a GDW veteran, one of the original founders of GDW, and who is now, unfortunately, the late Lauren Wiseman. So there was a lot of product there, and a lot of it was really good, well-written, well-done material, but it also did use the GURPS system rather than the Traveler system, which by itself created problems. Oh, Doug, we're going to talk about Babylon 5 here. I'm sure we'll mention that. Since there is Traveler Babylon 5 product that was released by Mongoose for their earlier edition of Mongoose Traveler, in which I think I have the whole line, which wasn't a lot, it was like 3 items. It was like a book, an adventure, and a book of ships, as I recall. But yeah, you could totally, you'd kind of need to build the professions and stuff. Something's wrong. Nope, never mind, nothing's wrong. You'd kind of need to build the professions and stuff, but you could totally do that. So, I was never... GURPS Traveler basically says, okay, Mega Traveler introduced the Rebellion, where the Third Imperium disintegrates into warring factions, and that's where you have your adventures. Generally, that was not a popular meta-story move. I didn't like that at the time, and then they doubled down on it with Traveler: The New Era. I understand the reasons why they did what they did, and I'm not going to say that those reasons aren't valid, but nevertheless, to this day, people prefer to be playing Traveler in what is called the Classic Era, or the Golden Age, the 1105, that was roughly the in-universe time frame of Classic Traveler. GURPS Traveler sort of introduced an alternate Traveler timeline in which the powder keg event of Emperor Strephon being assassinated did not occur. Instead, his assassin gets blown up instead. But nevertheless, a lot of the structural problems that had been set up to feed the rebellion are still around, and they're still causing issues. Okay, but GURPS Traveler, if nothing else, sells the lesson, because it was a successful product line for many years, that people want the Classic Traveler era, or at least they don't want to be dictated to, right? Traveler 4th Edition had this Milu Zero idea where you were playing at the dawn of the Third Imperium, and it was actually, story-wise, it was actually neat, other than it was written right around the time the whole Cold Fusion thing blew up, so Cold Fusion is kind of a key plot point in Milu Zero, and it sounds absolutely silly now. Other than that, a lot of the Milu Zero actual background stuff was actually pretty good. So, however, GURPS Traveler has some issues, a lot of which are just the simple, it uses the GURPS system, right? There are a lot of things that I like about GURPS. GURPS is actually a game that I've run, I've played, and I liked. We had no infrastructure for that here in when I was in Northeast Ohio. Nobody was interested in that. So I had to struggle every time I wanted to do something with GURPS. But it uses imperial measurements, right? Feet and miles and stuff like that, which creates, I think, a tone problem in a science fiction game that really should be using metric, okay? And Traveler always has. Every other edition of Traveler has always used metric. I'm not sure about Traveler Hero. We'll get to that. So, in addition to that, like the tech level sequence is different, and GURPS used GURPS's tech levels rather than Traveler's tech levels. The interface between those things caused problems. Some of the design sequences caused problems, but the biggest problem is a fundamental tone problem with GURPS and with Traveler, in that Traveler has random character creation. Character creation is an emergent experience in Traveler, where you roll dice and you decide, as part of that process, what story the dice are telling you about the character that you're creating. And the story might end up with, and then he got shot in the face and dies. But that's actually only been... ID Jester, thanks for stopping by. That's actually always been an option in every other edition other than Classic Traveler. That was the character actually dying. Otherwise, you just had to, stop character creation. And we could talk about dying during character creation, too, but I also covered that in the other video as well, so I see no particular reason to go into that into detail right now either. Let me verify that. Yes, it is. So... I don't have everything for Traveler 4th Edition, but I have almost everything. I want to say the Naval Architect's Manual is one of the only things I'm missing. There were always magazines supporting Traveler. Nowadays, there's a magazine called Freelance Traveler, which is an online magazine, which is really good, and which is still going. So anyway, the GURPS Traveler license ends, and this is, I think, after Lauren Wiseman passes away. In the meantime, GURPS had moved to GURPS 4th Edition. Support for really anything in 4th Edition was kind of thin on the ground compared to the way things had worked in GURPS 3rd Edition, where there was literally a source book for everything. So, in that same period, a number of other folks had licensed Traveler as well. QuickLink Interactive did a D20 version of Traveler right around the time of the D20 boom. Now, boy, that thing was very difficult to figure out. I think it would end up working a little better than you'd expect, but we never managed to actually even get characters completely made. So we had not gotten a lot of use out of Traveler D20, but again, as I mentioned before, some of the supplementary material that they produced for it was really good. There's a book called Gateway to Destiny, I think that's what it's called, which is like this huge 4-sector book set, I think, around the Classic era. I think it's set around the time of Solomon Rim War. So it's a little bit before the Classic era, but it's pretty much the Classic era. On the other side of the Imperium than what we would typically have seen out of GW. And that's a really good book. Some of the later Martin Doherty stuff is all really good. But the system as a platform for Traveler never really took off. There was a Traveler hero from... I have to confess that I don't remember who the publisher was on that. With this stuff, right now, SPI, this is kind of like the I don't have anywhere else to put it area, and you'll notice that although it hasn't changed in a few weeks since I got back from Compass Expo, this is the stack that's generally changing. We redid the top shelf too, so that there's actually no GDW, not GDW. There is actually GDW on the shelves. There is no GMT, however. The GMT game is the one... That's not true. There's some on the bottom. You can see Atlantic Chase down there in flying colors. But that's kind of... And that's just kind of a side effect of the way I've got the shelves organized at this moment. That's not intended to be a permanent thing or a statement of any kind. And I'm clipping GMT, so... So random character creation is not unique to Traveler. And Traveler uses what's called... life path character creation. Now GURPS character creation, like I said, it's a tonal problem. It's a problem of expectations. It's like, in what is Traveler about? And I'm going to come back to that sort of emergent character creation is one of the key aspects of Traveler for me. And that's something that GURPS, you could do random character creation in GURPS, but boy, it's clumsy. This is not a flaw as such, but it's an issue with my own expectations for what a Traveler game is supposed to look like. So GURPS Traveler hero goes nowhere. GURPS Traveler, the license ends, and the license gets picked up by Mongoose Publishing. Now I again can't tell you the exact year because I didn't look this up. But it's in the video, so at some point I should actually put the video on screen. That would be super clumsy, and I'm not going to do that. So, get some water here. So Mongoose picks up Traveler, and Mongoose at that point has, and even now to some extent, has a little bit of a mixed history, right? They had a reputation. Mongoose hit it big in the D20 boom, and was one of the very few companies to survive the collapse of the D20 boom. Okay, they did a lot of stuff for D20, and then they started doing, which is I think what saved them, started doing a lot of their own product lines. And they picked up a number of older games. They picked up Paranoia. This is all later. They picked up RuneQuest, which was kind of between publishers at the end, and Sans Glorantha at that point. They didn't do a good job with RuneQuest. Their second edition, they appears to have noticed that they did a bad job with RuneQuest. They also did a video on this, by the way. They appear to have noticed that they were doing a bad job with RuneQuest. Their second edition of RuneQuest was quite a bit better. Not flawless, but better. Okay, we're looking 10th Legion, yeah. There's a lot of really interesting tools that they brought in for universe building in GURPS Traveler, by the way. The Star System generation stuff was all kind of didn't quite fit because you wouldn't get a Traveler-like universe out of it. But they also did a whole economic system in GURPS Far Trader that you could use to create this elaborate economic background for your games if you wanted to. All right, so catching up on the chat. Bruce Schwartz says the etiquette T4 and the color plate art was really good. The Larry Elmore color plate art was really good. I've never been a big fan of Chris Voss, to be honest. I think his art is not that good. I know he's influential. Not that impressed. John Longshore says he never liked Babylon 5. John, you are objectively wrong. I loved Babylon 5. I think Babylon 5 even holds up okay. Not amazingly, but okay today. And there is a Babylon 5 revival project in the works. We'll see if that actually materializes into an actual thing, but at least they're talking about it. And for many, 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 many years, it was very obvious that Warner Brothers had no idea how to deal with that property. Manders mentions that the 4th edition GURPS Traveler product, which was, I believe, the only GURPS Traveler 4th edition product that they did, was GURPS Traveler Interstellar Wars. So this is the setting of the war game Imperium, which was actually the first, in a sense, it was actually the first Traveler product, because it predates the release of Traveler itself. And the Traveler universe grows out of that game, Imperium. Oops. So that setting is basically humans are expanding from Earth, and we make first contact, and to our shock and horror, it's other humans who are already out there and who already have this big interstellar empire. That is the setting for the GURPS Interstellar Wars setting as well. And it is actually a good setting. It's more interesting as background, I think, than it is as a place to actually play. Although there's nothing that says you can't use it as a place to actually set campaigns. Doug feels that random character creation is problematic. There's a lot of people that feel that way. I think it certainly can be problematic. In Traveler, I think it's less problematic because, although, I mean, some of this is probably as a result of the way I run things, right? I don't balance things in terms of character power as somebody running games. I balance things in terms of screen time. And generally, players are okay with that. I don't actually tell players that, but players are okay with that. Hey, I'm getting plenty of attention, even though my character is, objectively less powerful than the Aslan Star Marine that is, in battle dress. Everybody's less powerful than that character. That's kind of the problem. It's the game master's job to work around that problem. Now, you can definitely say that it's easier if that is not a problem that the game master has to worry about. That's absolutely true. So I'm not saying that it doesn't create additional game master or referee challenges. It does. Jeff Beeler says he was on the playtesting group of GURPS Traveler 4th edition. I actually have all the versions of Imperium, including Imperium 3rd Millennium from Avalanche. It might be the only Avalanche Press product I have, actually, anymore. Imperium is a really good game, actually. It is. I'd like to see it revived somewhere, like, not by Avalanche Press. I don't know that Mega Traveler 1 was that ugly by the standards of its time. I mean, certainly it's not going to look great now if you look at the graphics, but and it's very it's very spreadsheety, right? We were talking, who was this? Ryan Heilman mentioned, we got to do away with the case system. So we're going to talk about that in detail. But one of the reasons why you've never seen a role-playing game designed by me is because the kind of role-playing game I would design is absolutely the kind of role-playing game that would have been produced with the case system back in the early 80s. And nobody wants that kind of game anymore. So that's why you're never going to see it. You could totally do Space Empires plus Imperium plus Talon. Might be a better match. The problem with the idea of doing Imperium mashing it up with Space Empires is, what's the time scale of Space Empires? It's kind of vague, and because of the way Imperium works, where you have these interstellar wars, then you have lulls between the interstellar wars, you kind of have to tie that to a calendar, And you'd have trouble doing that with Space Empires. I'm not saying you couldn't do it. I'm just saying that's a problem that you'd have to address. Doug mentions SPI's Star Trader. So I do have the Universe RPG, which was kind of SPI's answer to Traveler. And believe it or not, a John Butterfield design. It is an interesting game. I wouldn't go so far as to call it highly playable. But it is an interesting game, and it has a number of really interesting ideas. And I felt strongly enough about that I went and picked up a copy not that long ago from our good friends at Enterprise Games. If you got the boxed version of Universe, you got Delta V along with it, which was the Starship Combat board game, which, you know, you played in a hex grid. But there was also an economic game that appeared in Ares magazine called Star Trader, and I still don't have that. I'd like to get it, but it's another one of those things that doesn't want to show up on my list of things that are at a price I would like to pay. So 28mm RPG, there is a Discord. There is an Ardwulf Discord. It has been my long-term goal to get it set up to do like a general community site, and I just have not gotten it there. I've done some of the infrastructure work to it that needs to happen, but not all of it. So eventually that will occur. And of course, I'm in a million Discords at this point. So John Longshore mentions XCOM. I've never played any of the XCOM games, to be honest. I'm in a couple of those Traveler ones. I'm not sure I'm in all of the ones you mention, actually. So, yeah, Agroshim mentions that MGT1 is not Mega Traveler, which is abbreviated MT, but MGT, and then MGT2 is Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition. And I guess we're going to be saying Mongoose Traveler 2.1 soon-ish. Because I've never talked. It was originally, so the Discord, and here's where we start to drift. The Discord was intended to be a Patreon benefit, but then while there is some activity there is not as much activity as there would be if I opened it to everybody. So I kind of have to reconcile, how does that work with the Patreons, getting them into the Discord and giving them the appropriate levels and stuff like that. Permissions don't really make any difference. At some point, I will make an announcement about the Discord, and we'll get it opened up to everybody. But tonight is not that night. So, but stay tuned. I have set up areas for virtual wargaming and for virtual RPGs. So, and it works good. It works a lot better than, for audio, it works a lot better than Roll20, which for audio is a complete loaf of ass. So, one of the interesting things that, unfortunately, if somebody wants to email me links at ardwulfslair@gmail.com, I can see if I can get them in the chat. So feel free to do that. I'll pull email up just in case somebody wants to send me something while we're going here. But ardwulfslair@gmail.com. So I guess I'll mention very briefly stuff that came in this week. I've already boxed it because I rearranged all the shelves because I wanted to put Great Campaigns of the American Civil War back up on the shelves. One of the things that had to go was Blackbeard, which is the Avalon Hill Richard Berg Blackbeard, as opposed to the GMT Richard Berg Blackbeard. I wanted this. I played this thing whenever it came out, right? Years and years and years ago. And I liked it, and I've always wanted to pick it up again, and it's never been at the price I wanted to pay. It was always like $50, $60, $70, and I'm not doing that. I finally got one for the price I wanted to pay, which was like $20 plus shipping. I was happy with that. It's punched but complete. It's in pretty good shape. So that came in. Another thing that showed up is Wable's War. This is Europa. This is like, it's a weird package, actually. It's a package that ties together Balkan Front, which is the campaign in the Balkans, and War in the Desert, which is the campaign in North Africa, all into sort of a grand Europa-esque combination thing. It does not work very well, to be honest. But because we're playing that right now, I want, and I have both Balkan Front and War in the Desert. I wanted it, and it comes with the Balkan Front update kit counters, which are revised counters from a Balkan Front. So I picked that up. It was not cheap, but it was not, you know. I'm trying to put it away. It was not Black Horse Games expensive either. Another thing, I want to thank Half-Ass Gaming for making me a palatable deal for None But Heroes. We may be clipping this soonish. I've got to kind of figure out how we're going to store line of battle stuff, but this completes my line of battle collection. So that is awesome. And probably nothing else is showing up till after Christmas, I would think. I think Google, I mean, to be honest, for gaming purposes, I strongly suspect that Discord is where it's at rather than Google Meet or Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts was the place at one point, but that's, so that edition of Blackbeard and for the GMT edition of Blackbeard is a quite different, completely redesigned game. So it isn't necessarily the same. That version of Blackbeard is very much a pirate simulator in a very Berg-like way. But that's what appeals to me about it. So that doesn't bother me. I actually think it'll play delightfully solitaire. So Doug says Google Meet works better for RPGs than Discord video or audio. He might be right about that, but I could verify that Roll20 is not good with that either. So there was a huge community on Google Plus for tabletop analog gaming. And it was one of the few like online communities that really embraced Google Plus. So losing Google Plus was a big blow, and of course, you know, the clowns at Google killed Google Reader for the sake of Google Plus, because even though it did not do the same thing at all, it was supposed to replace Google Reader, and that pretty much killed blogging. So thanks, Google. So I am, like I said, I am about a year behind on the Traveler stuff. I've gotten a couple of the newer things, but not all of them. At some point, I've actually got to email Mongoose about Aliens of Charted Space. I think Volume 1. I ordered it. They never sent it to me. They sent me Volume 2, but not Volume 1. I understand that there's shipping problems, but I think they lost track of my order, and I got to figure that out. I will check out Google Meet. It's worth a shot. What I do like about Roll20 is actually the automated character sheets. Those are actually pretty nice. A little flaky, but pretty nice. Most of the rest of it does not impress me particularly. But it's also free, at least to basically use it. Chad Kennedy, very nice. Has obtained None But Heroes and Stonewall Jackson's Way 2. Very good. I also now have, also thanks to John over at Half-Ass Gaming, I have a copy of the counter sheets for Burnside Takes Command, which is the Fredericksburg campaign. Fortunately, Fredericksburg at the campaign level is a little more interesting than Fredericksburg at the battle level, which is, you know, not a fun engagement. And that fits in with, I haven't looked in depth at the scenarios, but you need maps out of Stonewall Jackson's Way and Grant Takes Command, I think. This does mean that while I don't have, like, you know, unpunched copies of the counter sheets in the magazines or anything, I do have basically all of the content in the great campaigns of the American Civil War. So Jeff Beeler, one of the recent things that they did is a book on the Third Imperium that has a full sector treatment of Core Sector. Now, I don't have that yet either. So, like I said, I am a bit backed up on that stuff. So, maybe in the new year we will get caught up. Agrisham says that playing on land requires a different table etiquette than meat space gaming. Yes, he's right, or he or she is right, and I'm not sure I'm completely in sync with that yet. I think I need to work on it, but I also need to work on it on a platform other than. So the current thing that we've been doing is there is a physical Forbidden Lands campaign running in Northeast Ohio. So they're all sitting around a table, and they've got a laptop and a Blue Yeti mic hooked up to the laptop, and it's in and a webcam, and it's Roll20. So it's like I get like two of the players in this tiny window that I cannot expand in Roll20, and the sound is garbage. I can't understand anything that's being said. It drops constantly. It's kind of a terrible experience. And I am at the point of not continuing it because it's an unpleasant experience due to the technical limitations. And I tried to get him on Discord, which would have worked better, but he couldn't get it to work for some reason. Can't get Discord to work on hillbilly internet up in Northeast Ohio. So Jeff Beeler, that's always been true though. Really. There's always been the Third Imperium has always kind of been pretty nebulous, really, and a lot of contradictory information that maybe doesn't make that much sense has popped up. How much did we really know? We learned a lot in the Classic Traveler era about like the structure of fleets of the Imperial Navy, because they did a book on that. There was never much about Imperial governance or anything like that, except whatever tidbits you got in Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society articles. So, I've actually got 2 of these for what it's worth, so I'm going to have plenty of rulebooks. This should pretty much be fully cross-compatible, I think, is what they're telling us. So, one thing, however, that the current edition, this edition, Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition, does not have in the core book is the vehicle construction, vehicle design system. There's a bunch of vehicles, but it doesn't have the vehicle design system. And that's unfortunate. That is a problem that Traveler has, that I'm not sure any other edition of Traveler chose to leave that out. Let me put it that way. At least at a rudimentary level. This new 2022 update will include that, which is good. A lot of the other systems, like the trade system and the star system generation and stuff like that, is basically right out of Classic Traveler. So, I would like to talk about, for a little bit, the Traveler war games, okay? There's an Imperium, which we've already mentioned and talked about a little bit. But there's also, as Jeff mentions, and which I think has been mentioned up thread a little bit, there's also Fifth Frontier War. Now, Callendale did a video playthrough of Fifth Frontier War, and his review starts out with basically, this is terrible. And he's not wrong, actually. It is if you're just like playing it as a war game without any connection to the RPG, it is kind of unfun. It's not even kind of unfun. It's pretty gratuitously unfun, actually. But if you were playing it like alongside a Fifth Frontier War RPG campaign, I think you could get a lot of really interesting use out of Fifth Frontier War. And you could do some interesting things like troop style play where, hey, we're going to play this week, we're going to play our generals, fleet admirals moving fleets around the Spinward Marches, and the next week you're switching to your shipload of mechanics who's caught in the middle of that nonsense. You could easily do something like that. And in Classic Traveler, the character creation is so fast that you could easily generate half a dozen characters for each player. This version of Traveler, it's considerably more time consuming. And I think to good effect, I really like the character creation in this version of Traveler. But it does take a lot longer. There's no question that it does take a lot longer. I would just as soon, I mean, they've never really given you enough information on the Third Imperium to use in the core book anyway. If they had to cut that to make space for other, like, stuff, that's cool. I don't mind that. Then again, you know, I'm talking from the privileged position of having a lot of Traveler stuff, right? Like 40 plus years of Traveler product to draw upon. I don't actually need an introduction to the Third Imperium. I'd love an in-depth book on the Third Imperium, and I hope that that new book from Mongoose turns out to be that. So, as 28mm RPG mentions, there's also Mayday and so Belter was not technically one of the Traveler sci-fi games. However, it fits right into Traveler. They also did Double Stars. It's the same thing. Double Star doesn't really fit right in either. Belter fits in very seamlessly into Traveler, actually. You'd kind of need to do a new map if you were using it with Traveler, I think, but you could absolutely use it with Traveler. And it wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, it's not like a map for that would be difficult to make. So you could totally do that. Asteroid, I'm not sure that was a Traveler tie-in either, but it's another one of those that was very easy to tie into Traveler. There was Mayday and Snapshot. So Snapshot was basically an explicitly Traveler alternate character level combat system intended for boarding actions, and that effort was somewhat duplicated in Ajanti High Lightning, which was basically that with a slightly different boarding action level combat system and an enormous number of maps for this enormous cruiser. And then Mayday was the sort of standalone Starship combat game. And I didn't think that Mayday was all that interesting as a... Let me rephrase that. I didn't think that Snapshot was all that interesting as a standalone game. But again, you could like plug Traveler into it, and then, yeah, okay. Same thing with Mayday. Although I think Mayday holds up a little better as a Starship combat system. So... So Daniel Bugger says he played a full game of Fifth Frontier War and they enjoyed it. Good. That's fantastic. You could tell that Fifth Frontier War... I mean, it's actually interesting because GDW is one of the few publishers that actually made double-blind games work. And I'm not sure they took any of those lessons home on Fifth Frontier War. I'm not sure they didn't, but... Because remember that... GDW had a whole line of double-blind games. I think there were at least 3 or 4 of those. And they did so Jeff Beeler mentions Tarsus and Beltstrike too. They did these boxed adventures that were kind of like, okay, here's a star system, and here's a bunch of stuff that's going on. Now, you know, go at it and do whatever you want to do. We're gonna top that off. So Tarsus was, I don't remember what the hook for Tarsus was, but Beltstrike, the hook is pretty obvious. You know, it's a big asteroid belt. You want to hit it, strike it rich, or everybody else around you does anyway. So Jeff Beeler wants to start a campaign based on adapting Tarsus to the setting of Jack Vance's Planet of Adventure with the Droin as the ancient old race. I mean, you could totally do that. That kind of fits, to be honest. I can think of I don't know if Tarsus is the right place for that. I think I'd just start completely fresh, but you could totally do that. It's been a long time since I've looked at Tarsus. Yep, and they did a. I think they did a Market Garden game that was double blind as well. They did a couple. They did a few in that line. I'd have to look the line up to tell exactly, but all right, where are we starting here? We are pretty close to having an entire counter sheet done here. Yeah, so that's a thing, right? I mean, but Jeff, that's the kind of thing that makes sense in the context of Traveler. Is you've got a sort of rudimentary, but you have a tech level 16 Darien fleet that is a match for anything else. If you go into, by the way, if you go into travelermap.com, which you should definitely check out if you haven't, you'll find that there's a couple of tech level 16 planets floating around inside the Imperium. There's only one or two. 15th Legion, 19th Legion. But there are a couple. There's none in the Spinward Marches area, though, which is perhaps critical. 19th. So, if you're looking for super duper high tech stuff in the Spinward Marches, you're looking at Darien stuff for the most part, or like ancient droid stuff. That's fine. Wow. Jeff, that's pretty sad. So, yeah, we are doing Glenlivet. Thanks to Scott. Thanks again so much for the gift of this fine bottle of Glenlivet 15. It's very good. I had not tried Glenlivet 15. I had only tried the Glenlivet 12, and this is like quite a bit better. And the Glenlivet 12 is not bad. This is just better. Same thing with Glenfiddich, actually. Glenfiddich 12 is okay, but boy, Glenfiddich 15 is a lot better. Fantastic. So anyway, so I started putting together, there used to be, if anybody knows of a link to this, send it to me. There used to be a big database of Great Battles of History scenarios and modules and stuff, and those links appear to all be dead. So if anybody knows where those are, shoot them to me. Otherwise, I have, starting with SPQR and Alexander, I have started to put together my own spreadsheet of scenarios and where they are, because I want to keep track of stuff. There's an awful lot of Faces of Wayne, thanks for stopping by, first of all. I'd like to remind everyone, please do give the video a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to help support Ardwulf's Lair, there's links to do that in the video description. And I would like to thank Michael Potts for signing up as a new Patreon tonight while we were going, actually. So thank you, Michael. Talisker's really good. I like Talisker a lot. So, Faces of Wayne, the new Third Imperium book, I haven't looked at it yet. It's on the list of things I need to get. As is the Glorious Empire and a number of other things. I did pick up the Drenaxian Companion, because I've got the brilliant Pirates of Drenax campaign. One of the things that Mongoose is doing a really good job at is like campaign support and adventure support. So this has already been mentioned, but if you don't know, probably the single best Traveler oriented channel on YouTube is probably Seth Skorkowski. Okay, and he doesn't do Traveler exclusively, but a big part of what he does is Traveler, to the point where Mongoose said, "Hey, Seth, we'd like you to rewrite some of these classic adventures." So one of those was Death Station, which was one of the original double adventures. That is available for free in PDF on DriveThruRPG right now. I don't know that that's going to continue to be the case, so grab it now. There's also a new Traveler Explorers edition, which is like a cut-down version of the main rules. I haven't really looked at that, and I'm not sure how standalone that is. I know it's only got 2 careers in it, which suggests that it's not that standalone. Jeff, I don't think I have much more than 12 bottles of single malt. So I'd say you're doing pretty good. I got random stuff too, like a rum and a bourbon, a couple of bourbons, which I should probably do some work toward ridding myself of. Tech level 16 is where you start seeing stuff like black globe generators that reliably work and things like that. Those are basically force fields, and they're a huge advantage. So a lot of Seth's content is related. He's a much bigger channel than me, by the way, which is why I have not felt obliged to plug him. Just because he doesn't need plugs from the low life wargaming corners of YouTube. District 268 is a great place to set a Traveler campaign in general. But a lot of I have mentioned in the past that I am trying to be a more focused gamer, okay, and I've succeeded to some extent with war games and kind of focusing my attention on those game systems that I know I like, and which a lot of which is on the shelf behind me. I've been a little more successful with RPGs. Pretty much the only things I am buying in the RPG space at this point are Traveler and things from Chaosium. So I'm not feeling obliged to be particularly completist about Call of Cthulhu, but Call of Cthulhu is one of those things. I'm more into their new version of RuneQuest, but I haven't had a chance to play that either. Actually, that's not true. I actually played it at Origins 2 years ago, but or whenever the last Origins before the pandemic was. Yes, that's true. And now he's got a ton of Traveler. So that's the thing, is that a lot of Seth's RPG content is aimed at either Traveler or Call of Cthulhu. I feel like I have more than enough Call of Cthulhu content to run Call of Cthulhu basically forever. And that doesn't include the Call of Cthulhu Kickstarter that's still on its way, and I don't know where that's at. I should probably check into that. But from last year, where they did might have been earlier this year, where they did a reprint of the original edition, which I had back in the day. Should have gotten rid of it. Blah 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 blah. So a reprint is coming. It'll be nice. I suspect that somebody's buying me a bottle of scotch for Christmas. If I'm exceptionally lucky, I might get as many as 2 or 3 bottles of scotch for Christmas, which would be great. That's literally never happened, though. All right, let's see here. We have an empty counter sheet, so that's cool. Whoop! And one more counter stuck to it, too. Random guys. He has been playing Traveler a while at this point. I mean, go and ask him. But he wasn't brought on board until Mongoose brought him on board. So, but I've he's got good instincts. and he knows what he's doing, and he is at this point a student of the system. I haven't looked that closely at Death Station yet, but it's a classic Traveler adventure. He also redid, I think, Research Station Gamma or Murder on Arcturus Station, and that looks super promising, and I need that too. So there's a whole pile of stuff that I'm probably just going to have to suck it up and buy a bunch of it at some point early in the new year. So, but there's a lot of good stuff. I did get the Deep Night Revelation stuff, which is a huge exploration campaign. That's really neat. I think it requires a kind of a considerable amount of referee work to make it function. But, that's probably true anyway. So this is the 19th Legion at this point that we are working on. There are 9 full legions available in this set. And a crap ton of battles. Yeah, I mean, you could... That's an interesting... Jeff, that's an interesting thing. So the way... For those who don't know, the way Traveler character creation has worked historically, now, you start talking about GURPS Traveler and then it's different, but is that you pick careers and then you make some random rolls on a table that represents that career to determine what happens in your term, which is typically 4 years. Okay. All of the true Traveler iterations have had this. GURPS Traveler didn't, Hero Traveler didn't, but D20 Traveler did, kind of, and it was super kludgy, but they did actually put terms and careers in there. The current version has like 12 different careers or something like that. It's a good selection. It's a very robust selection. If you have the Traveler Companion, there's a couple of new ones in there that I don't particularly care for, although I can see that there's a place for them. I just don't know why you need to have a whole career for them. It's also pretty easy to create new careers. Basically, it's like a 2-page spread. You design a 2-page spread with the random tables and stuff, and you're all set. Even easier to do in Classic Traveler, but, that's because Classic Traveler was so skeletal. Ugh. Yeah, see, I got the Deep Night stuff off of the Kickstarter. And one of the reasons why I do the Kickstarters from Mongoose Traveler stuff is that, at least in some cases, it's ludicrously expensive to get it later on after the fact. So, same deal with the JTAS sets, and those are really nice, by the way. I was lucky. I was in a good place when that Deep Night Revelation Kickstarter hit, and I was able to buy into it. I got everything except for this stupid pack of pencils and stuff. I shouldn't say stupid. There's people that are super into that. It was like $40 for a pack of pencils and some dice. I felt like that was more than it was worth, whatever the add-on value of that was. So I was happy without it. You can always, get the PDF versions. At this point, like I said, the only physical RPG books I am buying are Traveler and things that Chaosium does. I'll buy the new Pendragon when that comes out. So the story is that when humans first encountered the Aslan, they thought they looked like Terran lions, and they sort of do in some of the art, and in some of the art they really do, but in a lot of the early art they only sort of look like lions. Aslan is the Turkish word for lion, as C.S. Lewis would have been delighted to lecture you about. So the next big thing that's coming from them is the Mercenary set. I don't know where that is in the pipeline, but that's coming, and that's a whole set. I was a little underwhelmed by it. I've got it in PDF already. They already sent that to me. I was a little underwhelmed by it. I thought they could have done more with that concept. but, you know, I'm happy to have it. So, Mongoose is a British company, but they do have a U.S. distribution point. What that's Cubicle 2 or Studio 2. I don't know exactly how their arrangement works, but they have a place. So if you order it and you're in the U.S., it's going to ship from the U.S., not from the U.K. Triplanetary was not part of the Traveler universe, nor was it ever part of the Traveler license. It was actually licensed out to Steve Jackson Games, I think, before GDW went out of business, and Steve Jackson Games sat on it for 20 years before doing anything with it. For, I don't know why. I mean, I presume they had reasons. They're a lot more like the C.J. Sherry's Chinur than they are like lions. I mean, they're super terror. They took a couple of lion-like characteristics, that they meaning GDW, and kind of extrapolated that into the biology and psychology of a whole alien race. It's not unfair to say, well, here's the dog aliens and here's the cat aliens. They're both kind of in there, but they also Traveler also does interesting things with them, so I don't really mind whether that looks realistic at the end of the day is a bit of a different question, and I'm not sure that it does, but Traveler is not hard science fiction, never has been, although it has sometimes waved its hands at being hard science fiction. It is much more space opera than it is. Is it Cubicle 7? I can't ever remember the damn cubicle number. Whatever it is. Yep, Blood Tree Rebellion was another one that was not Traveler related. The one that everybody thinks was Traveler related but isn't is Belter. But again, you could just drop that into Traveler with no issues at all. Blood Tree Rebellion is one that I don't have and have never had. I had Triplanetary and I had Double Star, and I got rid of them, which was probably a bad idea, but I'm not going to reacquire them now. Perfidious Albion, not exactly. It was a strategic war game in the Traveler universe. You couldn't just use it as like a sandbox strategic war game in like a Federation and Empire sort of sense. It simulated a specific conflict between the Terran Confederation and the First Imperium, and you would have had to retool it to get it to do anything else, which is something that GDW did. Years later, not that many years later, a few years later, they kind of erased that part of the setting, dropped it into a new section, and called the game Dark Nebula. And it's kind of supposed to be in the Dark Nebula sector, sort of between the Aslan and the Solomani sphere. And it had a geomorphic map, so you could jumble the map around every time and get a different game every time. It's kind of neat, but it's the Imperium system. So that's interesting if it's shipped from the UK to Canada. I mean, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know when I tell them that shipping rates are off the hook right now. So, all right. So, I don't know if we're done clipping counters, but next I have baggy labels. So, I have done the study here, and it is possible to fit a grand total of 2 counter trays in this SPQR box, and that is not going to do it. So to organize this in any vaguely sensible way would take at least, I'd say, 3 counter trays, preferably 4, and I can't fit 4 in this 3, even though it's a 3-inch box. There's a lot of content in there, so we're going with baggies. So I think for most GBOH games, baggies are going to be the answer. Because, damn it, because there's need for so much compartmentalization so you can actually find the stuff that you need when you need it. GMT Games website was technically not down. Their internet service provider was having issues, however. Last I checked, which was sometime before the stream, it was back up. It was... their ISP was having problems. Jeff, I'm not convinced that... So that statement, I don't think you're actually wrong. But that statement implies that there was, I think, more conscious decision-making than there may have actually been. I think a lot of the Traveler universe just kind of evolved spontaneously in various formats and products, one of which, a big important one of which, was the Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society. A lot of that original Traveler, like early Traveler setting lore, showed up first there. And a lot of it was not... Yeah, GMT's site should be back up now. It was fine last time I looked at it. Yes, this is the latest version of SPQR. It does include an additional half counter sheet and I think an additional map and an additional book. I had specifically... So one of the things that I have on order is Red Flag Over Paris, which is Fred Serval's new game about the Paris Commune. Which maybe we'll talk about that here too, actually. Not the Paris Commune particularly, but so that's an adaptation of the Mark Herman Fort Sumter system. Okay, now I've played Fort Sumter and I've had, it's not aimed at me, right? Fort Sumter is not my kind of game. I played the digital version. I thought it was good, but and I'll play it again, I think, but I'm not in a hurry to play it again. But part of that is like an interest level function, right? I am super interested in the causes of the Civil War and the build up to the Civil War. And that is not the kind of game that I am going to go find, meaningful simulation on that topic. It's not designed with that in mind, and that was not Mark's goal, and that's fine. But I have that opinion because I am very interested in that topic. I am not that interested in the Paris Commune. However, I've been listening to the Revolutions podcast, which is a Mike Duncan podcast. I got turned on to this by Mike Wilner, actually. And the 6 people that walked up while I was talking to Mike, oh, guy, have you guys seen that? Listen to that Revolutions podcast? It's great. So I started listening to that, and one of the big segments of that, I'm a fraction of the way through this thing, is about the Paris Commune. So it's super interesting, and I believe that a Fort Sumter level game will be suitable and appropriate to my interest level in that topic. So I've ordered it. So I was checking on whether mine had shipped or not, because it's like people are starting to get them, and I'm like, they said they started shipping on December 9th, and it's now almost Christmas, and mine still says it hasn't shipped yet. So what's going on? I mean, I'm not in a huge hurry, right? It's not a big deal. Same guy who did the History of Rome podcast, by the way. So if you're into History of Rome, since we're talking about SPQR, go check out the Mike Duncan History of Rome podcast. That's one of the things. So Marx was like there at the Paris Commune. So, and it would be interesting to read Marx's perspective on that. And there's an edition of that where you can get an additional article by Lenin that Lenin wrote about the Paris Commune. Lenin, of course, was writing much later. Marx was like literally there on the ground, at least watching from an upper floor window while everything was going on. Great Battles of Alexander, expanded deluxe second printing. Oh, so should tell you this. So the Gray Rooster, I'm going to put this in the chat. So with the dissolution of apparent dissolution of NWS, people have been asking about, hey, where do I get war games at a decent discount? And it was mentioned, and I apologize for this, and I don't remember who mentioned it now. A Gray Rooster Sales LLC. These folks are, whoever this is in Ohio, and I ended up shipping some stuff to Half-Ass Gaming from them, and they shipped friggin' instantly, and they packed like crazy secure packaging. So initial impressions on these folks are super, super, super positive. So, yeah, I mean, that's another thing is, part of the thing of Traveler is every planet's different. Some planets are advanced, some planets are not. You can easily go to a planet and you happen to be landing on this planet, which, hey, I didn't know this because information travels at the speed of travel. So they're undergoing, some kind of Paris Commune type revolution or some kind of French Revolution or some, whatever. There's just an enormous quantity of historical events that you could mine for Traveler adventures. You can, so they do have an Amazon storefront. You can buy their stuff through Amazon. I think it's more expensive. So I am going to order. Everything's linked off the link I just put in the chat. So. Wow. Do they have Avalanche? I didn't look at that. I don't see Avalanche on here. Unless, Mike, you mean that you ordered it from Avalanche. Yeah, I'm super happy. So this was shipped to John and not me. So but John sent me pictures and was like, "Hey, look at this! This is crazy. You see how they package this thing?" So yeah, initial buzz is real good. And there's a BGG thread about NWS and alternatives right now, and a bunch of alternatives are mentioned in there. I think all of which we have mentioned over the course of 50 some episodes at this point. Noble Knight it was mentioned. Miniature Market was mentioned. Cool Stuff really only sells GMT now, and I'm not sure how much longer they're even going to sell GMT, since they don't appear to be very interested in selling board games at all anymore, just in Pokemon cards. And if that's going to be their business, that's fine, but then I don't have to give them any money either, because that's not something I'm interested in. So what I was buying through Cool Stuff was war games. And if they don't want to support war games anymore, then okay, that's their business decision. I do not have to give them any money. So that sounds like I'm sore about it, but I'm really not. This is a niche market. I mean, I get it if they're just going to decide, hey, we can't make this work anymore. Okay. But I'll just go buy them from somewhere else. After the NWS situation, after my order got canceled, I went and ordered Panzer's Last Stand. I just ordered it from MMP, and it took them a couple days to ship. It came a couple days after that. I think the post office sat on it for an extra day or so. So now this copy of Wavell's War got stuffed into a box that was too small and had no padding in it. I'm a bit sore about that. It's a bit it's not dinged up enough that I'm going to bitch, although I did bitch in a message to the seller, like, hey, what's up with this? But I mean, I'm not going to demand my money back or anything, but they should be packing better than that. Huh? I'm looking. Hold on. ESO Crottigere, 2nd edition 360. I feel like that's a typo, to be honest. That doesn't make any sense. That's more than MMP wants for it. A lot more than MMP wants for it. The new North Africa one, if you haven't seen SCS North Africa, check out the unboxing video that I did on Thursday. It's pretty good. It's nice. It's a nice package. I have never played GMT's Panzer nor the predecessor game from Yaquinto. I think that was Yaquinto that did the game originally. The cool stuff has been lean on wargames since before that. At this point, the only things I see from them are GMT. They might have Worthington too, although I don't really know. I'm not paying as much attention to Worthington. There's definitely some stuff from Worthington that I do think is noteworthy in the wargaming space. But they're a little less my style, so I pay less attention to Worthington. Although I am tempted by that new Soviet Dawn, I got to tell you. Just because it's a much nicer version of Soviet Dawn than the one I have. They have basically everything from MMP and Compass. So if you want to buy... And Revolution Games, Tiny Battle Publishing, Turning Point Simulations, Worthington. Did they have Soviet Dawn here? I don't see Soviet Dawn. Legion Games, Flying Pig, DVG, Compass, Clash of Arms. I'm a bit tempted by Wings Over the Motherland or Wings of the Motherland. And Against the Odds. So I should take a look at Against the Odds too. There's a couple things in there that I'm tempted by. All right, so I think we're done with clipping. I'm not going to start a second counter sheet now. We've made excellent progress for tonight. There it is. I mean, there's 3 books of scenarios in SPQR Deluxe. And again, this is for anybody that didn't catch this answer before. This is the current edition of SPQR Deluxe that I'm pretty sure is still available from GMT. And if you do want a discount on a GMT game, then go check out... I would shop at Miniature Market now rather than Cool Stuff. Yeah, Mercenaries, that's coming. I mentioned that earlier. It was a Kickstarter that they did last year. Oh, yeah, we got to get into that. So the 20% off sale, I think, won't apply from... OSG is having a sale in January. And... I think it won't apply additionally on top of the pre-order discount for the pre-order games, which I need to order in January because I've been putting that off for months. So their pre-orders. So for ASL specifically, Ritter Krieg is an option, but they only carry ASL. So, but they do carry like non-MMP ASL too. So if you're whatever you're into, ASL wise, you can get it from Ritter Krieg. So we did have definitely a lower attendance this evening, which is maybe not particularly surprising. But we're doing we did the holidays coming up, people are busy, and B, we did an RPG topic that I think is atypical. We do have a stream with Dan on Wednesday, which will be happening whether Dan is there or not. We'll be sure to bully Dan about his non-attendance last week. So I don't know what went on, but everything's fine. Dan's fine. He just, it was a snafu. Just, we'll give him grief about it on Wednesday. But it's here on Wednesday. And then we'll have some kind of release schedule over the holiday. I'll get one of the goals for Tuesday, Wednesday is to get videos done for basically Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So hopefully we get 4 videos out. Miniature Market was bought out by Asmodee. Really? Fuck. Okay, well, I'm sure they fired everyone then, and no one works there anymore. So maybe don't order from Miniature Market. Asmodee is getting sold to somebody else now that is presumably in the business of actually running a business rather than firing everyone and selling off the individual properties a la carte, which is what Asmodee was doing. South China Sea for $5 is probably also a typo. Yes. I didn't know about Grey Rooster. One of the little fucko knew all about this guy and didn't tell me anything about it. I'm like, who? And it turns out it's like it's a good place to go. The difficulty was that unless you wanted to pay, I like to get a discount, right? Like everybody else, and money has been tight. So, I was looking for, it didn't have to necessarily be the best discount possible, but a discount was desirable. And there was only one place online that I knew about at one point that sold MMP stuff, and that was Cool Stuff. And then I discovered NWS, and then Cool Stuff stopped carrying MMP, so I started ordering MMP stuff, generally speaking, MMP and Clash of Arms and stuff like that, through NWS. And I would almost always have an order in the NWS process. But, I'm not going to pretend that situation wasn't annoying, where I would have to send polite emails every couple of months to say, hey, did you forget about my order? That doesn't appear like it's happening with Grey Rooster. And a lot of new stuff. I mean, not everybody knew about all these sources, right? You got your Noble Knight and your Enterprise Games and your, Miniature Market and your Cool Stuff or whatever they have. We already mentioned Noble Knight. There's also CLS in Atlanta, which has a good selection at least. Their discounts are not amazing, but, it's a discount. Noble Knight has Swings Over the Motherland. Noble Knight has it for like 30% off. I mean, that's a pretty good discount. I'd be happy with that. So, and of course you can go to eBay and hope that you'll get something for a good price. I have managed to. So I had like this, I don't know, 30 different pre-set up eBay searches for various old things that are still on my wish list. And I have cut that in half in the last couple of months. Because there's really like nothing in stock from anywhere that I actually need. There's a couple things I'm tempted by, but so there's also Fine Games that was out somewhere in Oregon or Seattle or someplace like that. But if that gentleman has not already retired, he is retiring. You're thinking of Asmongold, John, I think. So, who finally pulled the trigger and shaved his head, I note. Or at least somebody talked about. I don't know. I haven't watched him in a while. So, I don't know. But, there's a lot of online retailers, many of which are offering at some kind of discount. I note that Grey Rooster doesn't do GMT, but GMT's easy to get. I can go to the soldiery or the guard tower and get the new GMT stuff. So at a little bit of a discount, not a huge discount, but a little bit. So, and there's always places like Enterprise Games and stuff like that. So. So catching up, yeah. Like I said, I don't know. I will be sure and give him grief about it. I do want to talk about the case system, and maybe we'll see what we could do to get Ryan Hellman on, who made the statement that we should do away with the case system. Certainly, there are some games that the case system has done no favors for, but there's other games where I think it's really advantageous that there be some kind of heavily indexed rules presentation model used. And not using that would be a big headache. While reading the rules for GTS, we said, this would be way better if there was like a strict case system used here. So it is dry and textbooky, and maybe not suitable for a lot of games, but it also has its place, I think, and is useful in some spheres that a more narrative rules presentation doesn't apply at. They do have MMP Charles Latour. Which MMP Africa are you talking about? Are you talking about the old SCS Africa or the new SCS North Africa? Because I find it even at MMP, I find it difficult to believe that they'd have sold out of it already. Okay, so Fine Games is still around. I've gotten stuff from Fine Games too. They have a they're an Amazon affiliate as well. Well, I can tell you that the SCS North Africa is still in stock as of right now on their website. And it is $88. Whereas on, do they have it on Gray Rooster yet? Gray Rooster? Yeah. $57 through Gray Rooster. Best place to order Mongoose Traveler material bluntly is directly from Mongoose. Because if you order it from Mongoose, you order the physical copies, you get the PDFs for free, and that right there makes it worthwhile, I think. You may be able to get it for a discount somewhere else, but Cool Stuff doesn't carry it, and Miniature Market has carried it in the past, but doesn't normally carry much. I actually got my Traveler 5. We should take a moment to talk about Traveler 5. I actually got my Traveler 5 from Miniature Market, and it's a nice physical package. It's 3 big books in a slipcase. They did a nice job on it. It is a mess. Are we saying that Enterprise Games is down? Wonder if they have the same web host as GMT. Yeah, GMT's up now. So I don't know what's up with that. I mean, you're not getting a discount from Mongoose off of MSRP, but you are at least getting the PDFs. Whereas now, on the other hand, there's some Traveler stuff where you should go through drive-thru to get it, drive-thru RPG, because you can order things like the Traveler book. You can get it in PDF. You can get a new print-on-demand version of the Traveler book. You can't get that anywhere else. Mark Miller actually just released a new Traveler 5 book, which is T5 Second Survey. It's not recommended unless you are already a Traveler completist. You could say even though I'm behind, you could say I'm a Traveler completist. So I ordered the hard copy. It's basically a bunch of sectors with the sector data. It's only of use for the completist. Anybody else, I would say just go to travelermap.com and use that. You can access all that data from there. You could pull that data from there in that same format if you want to. I don't know that it's actually useful to do unless you're a nerd, but you can. I managed to create a spreadsheet level character star system generator for T5, which is the new standard. So, are we empty? We're empty. So, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Next, we should. I don't know if we're going to see a GMT update this week. Has anybody heard anything about that? Because I haven't. And if we don't see it this week, I assume we're not seeing it till next week, and possibly not even until after Christmas. I forgot to put out all the social media posts for this week's show, by the way, so that's on me. I put out, some of them are automated, but there's like 5 or 6 that I do manually right before I hit show my face. So, and I forgot to do that. It's been a tiring couple of weeks, to be honest. Just pulling up Consim World here. Manders is right. A lot of publishers are dealing in and or print on demand, right? And you can handle your print on demand directly through drive-thru RPG. And you can get a lot of cool Traveler stuff for that. That Traveler Explorers Edition is only $1 in PDF, by the way. Cepheus. So what's Cepheus Engine? One of the things that Mongoose did when they took over RuneQuest and Traveler is release a open license for those systems. So as a result, Cepheus Engine is kind of like a stripped down Mongoose Traveler, kind of without some of the built-in setting assumptions that Traveler has historically had, and some people really like it. I've had people like vigorously say they despise Mongoose because of their prices. I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about, man. This is what RPG books cost now. I mean, there's nothing really strange going on here. Although, I mean, I might quibble about individual book prices and stuff like that, but this was like $50. That's what an RPG core book costs now. Yeah, this is $50. So I'm not sure I understand the complaint. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with Mongoose, and I like the official setting, with the caveat that I am absolutely free to monkey with it to my heart's content, or make major changes to it, or run in something else. But you've always had the ability. Traveler gave you, from day one, 1977, gave you the tools to create your own universe. It's always been there. You don't have to use their universe. Ditch it if you don't like it. So I don't need to go with Cepheus Engine to do that. Now, they've done a lot of really nice development with Cepheus Engine, with some alternate settings and some toolkits and things like that. So I do think that the Cepheus stuff is worth looking at. I'm just generally speaking, and I have the Cepheus Engine core rules. I'm just generally pretty satisfied with the Mongoose stuff. Jeff, that's right. There's been some tweaks to the world generation numbers. It's basically the same system, but there's some tweaks to it to try and make the numbers make a little bit more sense. T5 goes further in that direction, but if you really want a really realistic star system generation system, then you would probably be best served by not using the ones in Traveler. The Traveler star system generator is designed to generate Traveler star systems. That sounds vacuous, but it's designed to generate the kind of nodes in the hex map that are interesting places to visit. And there's not a lot of dead space in the Traveler map. This system is unoccupied, blah 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 blah. It's red dwarf star. There's like no meaningful planets. There's really very little of that in Traveler. And that's why, because that star system generator doesn't generate those kind of systems very often. A more realistic, I'd say, I don't know if realistic is the right word, but we'll use it for now. Star system generator, the one in GURPS Space, 4th edition, is more realistic, I would say. I do feel like I'm having a little bit of trouble keeping up with Mongoose at this point. And you get behind, and then you're like way behind, and then I got to spend like $400 to catch up. This sucks. So RIW. See, I don't know what the print-on-demand landscape in Europe looks like. I do know that it's like companies like Hollandspiel do not print on demand in Europe. They're actually printed in the U.S. So that might not mean they don't have those options in Europe. That might only mean that interesting. Okay, so that might only mean that it's a different printer and they haven't made an arrangement with them. I don't know. Well, the other thing is that the classic Traveler star system generator. It's not really a star system generator. It's a world generator, right? It's meant to generate the one interesting planet in the star system. And it ignored everything else, including what kind of star it was, how many stars there were, all that stuff. T5 gives you all that, but it's a way higher overload, and I would never choose to actually use it manually, except to learn how it works so that you could then script it out and make a tool that does it. In my case, I just used Excel, right? So at some point, I may even do this tonight now that we're on the topic. I may send a polite email to Mongoose customer service and say, hey, can I get that thing that I bought that you guys never sent me? So there's that. Things happen. There was a huge delay with shipping on that stuff, so that's why. So I'm not sore about it. I'm just, should get it straightened out. I also need to make sure that I'm telling them about the right one. So anyway, all right. So we're at 9:56. So we're about to wrap up here tonight. This has been a bit more laid back than usual, but it was also an off topic, and we had a good night anyway. It's been great chatting about this with all of you. We'll continue to mention Traveler on a relatively regular basis without necessarily having a whole show about it. We've also probably talked more about the topic than, not that there was no drift, but we've probably stayed on topic more than we typically do. Wayne, thanks for stopping by. So I'll remind you, I have no video planned for Tuesday, but we will have a video on Wednesday. That'll be the stream hopefully with Dan, and we'll see what else happens. And then we'll have videos on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday if I have my druthers about it. I've got a couple of days to get that set up. As I mentioned before, I'm taking some time off this week, so I will have a little bit of leisure time. But of course, there's holiday stuff that's got to get done, while that's all going on. So there's all that. So I think we are going to call it 3 minutes early tonight. So $108 for pre-order for 2382nd edition. Is that a huge boxed set? I don't understand. I'll look at it. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. We did not really talk about Twilight 2000. And I'm not really prepared to do that since I didn't order it. So I've looked at a friend's copy who did order it, and it's nice. It's nicely presented. It's very fancy. It's a much more streamlined system. It is aimed toward hex crawl play, which is a style of play that I like. They messed up the setting as far as I can tell fairly badly, but you can always just use the old setting material too, of which it's all out there. So anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by. Please do support the channel you've been here, which supports the channel, but please support the channel more by clicking the thumbs up icon on the video and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to help support the channel more, please look at the links in the video description for the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. And we will have Discord news hopefully early next year. There should also be sale video news hopefully early next year as well. So I would like to wish everybody a great week. And again, this will be the last show before Christmas, but not the last show of the year. So we'll be back next Monday. There's no holiday time off here. So I'd like everybody to have a happy and safe holiday this weekend, and make sure you are safe and sound and able to join us again next Monday. Everybody have a great holiday.